Marcy, Skylight, Gray, Cliff, and Redfield done. Now the long walk back to the lodge. 3:55 a.m., just signed in. Santanoni Range, let's go. The wind is whipping here in the Seward Range today. Just finished the Macomb slide and my legs are on fire. Well, I fell victim to the floating logs again. Made it to the top of East Dix, peak number 3 of 5 for today here in the Dix Range. Avalanche Pass. On top of Rocky Peak Ridge, it's like a hurricane up here. Rain and wind here on Tabletop. Whiteface, number 6. Muddy day here on Street and Nye for number 7 and 8. Sunny and blue on Haystack. Algonquin, up in the clouds, number 18. Gothics, number 22. Panther, number 38. Allen, number 45. 7:12 a.m. Big Slide, Adirondack, 46er. You're listening to the 46 of 46 podcast.
Slightly windy this morning. 4:11 a.m. start with a slight jog. Got a little bit of pain in the hip. Got to get that stretched out a little bit. Otherwise, feeling good. Ready to see the sunlight. Hit that first summit of Wright Peak. Here we go.
Hiking in the high peaks of the Adirondacks is no simple task. These remote and rugged ranges are filled with long miles, lots of elevation gain, and tough terrain. And it's not unusual, however, to summit 5 high peaks in a single day, and we all know how our bodies feel at the end of those long days in the mountains. We also know how our bodies and minds feel when we have been awake for 24 straight hours for one reason or another. Now, imagine taking that feeling of summiting 5 high peaks in a day and multiply it by 5 and merge it with that feeling of being awake for more than 24 hours. So imagine summiting 25 high peaks in one single 24-hour stretch. Welcome to the mind of the mad scientist of the high peaks, Jonathan Zaharek. And on this episode of the 46 of 46 podcast, he's taking us along for the ride.
As the years go on, you start to learn more and more about yourself and your hiking abilities and your passions here in the high peaks, especially now that I live here. I've been able to explore that side of me, realizing what my strengths and weaknesses are and where my passions are. And for a while, I've known about 46 climbs, and this year it came to me as an option of something to participate in through my friend Billy Rudd and Team Excelsior. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to participate in it this year. I also know that I've always wanted to attempt the 24 in 24 High Peaks Challenge, 24 high peaks in 24 hours. And I know there's only 2 people that have ever done that. And, as a hiker, you start to realize what your strengths and weaknesses are. And I realized that's right up my alley. I've come to really enjoy ultra running and just cranking out huge days in the mountains. And I always thought that if I wake up in my bed and then go back to my bed in the same day or relatively within the same day, my mental state on the trail is much better because I have something to come back to. And I realized, wow, maybe the 24 in 24 is right up my alley. I loved the Bob Marshall Traverse, and, I just love these big days. And now that I'm working on my Grid 46, I'm very used to it. And, it took a second, and I realized, wait a second, that is the perfect combination of because the point is to raise money and awareness for suicide prevention, and most people take that as an opportunity to push themselves as well, push their limits, and I love pushing my limits, and it's every year I set forth some type of goal at the end of the year. All year I have some goals, things I want to get done and whatever, but it's always towards, someone always, at least in my shoes, I have a lot of friends like this, they always have one main goal through the year. And I think we all do at some point. We have one goal in the hiking world, I would assume, most of us, that we would probably like to achieve by the end of the year. X amount of miles, X amount of mountains, certain things or whatever. And for me, it was just laid on my heart this year to do the 24 high peaks in 24 hours.
As Jonathan decided to attempt this feat and merge it with the fantastic work the 46 Climbs organization does every year, bringing in money for suicide prevention and awareness organizations, the mad scientist himself, in typical fashion, upped the goal ever so slightly, because why summit 24 high peaks in 24 hours when you could summit 25 high peaks in 24 hours?
As I started to look at the numbers of, looking at the route, because there is somewhat of a designated route to do it. There's only one way to really get that many peaks in a day. I started to look at it and I realized, maybe I could step up the game and try to go for the 25th peak, 25 peaks, which no one's ever done. It would be the largest, day hike that anyone's done in recorded Adirondack history. And so I was like, you know what? I think that's what I want to try to do for 46 Climbs. So I joined the Excelsior team of 46 Climbs and used it as an opportunity to challenge myself and to challenge others to give towards the cause and to come along the journey with me.
It was 4 a.m. on Monday, September 12th, as Jonathan stood in the parking lot at the Adirondack Lodge, ready to tackle his biggest day to date in the high peaks. The goal was set. His body and mind were ready. It was time to hit the trail.
So Monday morning came around and I was really stoked. My goal was to start pretty close to 4 a.m. And generally people in the past have actually started something like this midway through the day. And some people have done it in the afternoon because they want to have more energy to go through the night. For me, as an ultra hiker, I've come to accustom hiking starting way early in the morning and ending late at night. And that's just where I felt comfortable doing it. So 4 a.m, I got in my car. My dad dropped me off at the Adirondack Lodge, and I decided to start the trail, not at the normal sign-in, but at the sign-in right across from the actual lodge itself, which is a little bit shorter up to the McIntyre Range. I walked into the sign-in booth and started my watch right at 4:11 a.m., and I started jogging on my way up to Wright Peak, which was the first mountain. I was actually getting a little bit of cramping in my thigh, and I was like, are you kidding me already? And I just know I needed to just kind of work it out throughout the morning.
Nothing like cramping up to start the 25 high peak, 50-plus mile day with 26,000 feet of elevation gain, right? But Jonathan knew it would go away as he got warmed up for the morning, and he was off to the races, beginning with the McIntyre Range. 25 high peaks in 24 hours. Here we go.
Slightly windy this morning. 4:11 a.m. start with a slight jog. Got a little bit of pain in the hip. Got to get that stretched out a little bit. Otherwise, feeling good. Ready to see the sunlight. Hit that first summit of Wright Peak. Here we go.
The route for his day would go as follows. Starting with Wright, on to Algonquin, Iroquois, a bushwhack to Marshall, followed by Cliff and Redfield, then on to Gray, Skylight, Marcy, Haystack, Basin, Saddleback, Gothics, Armstrong, Upper Wolfjaw, Lower Wolfjaw, down to the Lake Road, up to Colvin, Blake, Nippletop, Dial, followed by a bushwhack to the Dix Range to tackle Dix, Huff, South Dix, Grace, and finally to Macomb.
Just coming up here to the summit of Wright Peak for the day. Oh yeah, pretty dark out still. Most peaks are in the clouds. Algonquin's not in the clouds, and there are some people up there as well, which is pretty early in my opinion. First high peak, 1 down, 24 to go. Let's get moving. Just like every other time going up to the McIntyre Range, pretty straightforward. Generally takes me about 1 hour or so to get up to Wright Peak. And I got to the intersection. I did drop my pack and kind of just got my trekking poles and just kind of went all the way right up to the summit. Took my first picture, took it in. It was still pretty dark. Had my headlamp on. I actually saw the headlights of some people up on Algonquin, and I was like, oh, there's people up there already. Interesting. They probably can see me. And looked at my time. I'm like, all right, that was pretty good. Let's just keep the pace going. So I ran down right and then started making my way all the way up to Algonquin. Approaching the summit of Algonquin, and out of nowhere, the clouds started rolling in. The sunlight is now starting to shine into the atmosphere, and there's a couple people up here. I guess they're up here for sunrise. Well, I hope there's a sunrise for them. But we're just going to keep on moving now on our way over to Iroquois. By the time I got to the summit of Algonquin, right before the top, an inversion started. And so the clouds just started rolling over the top. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, at least I'm not coming up here for the views. But there was a couple people up there that were waiting for the sunrise. And they took a picture of me. And the sun was starting to come up slowly. And I still needed my headlamp. But I grabbed my stuff and I just kept moving. As I was going up to Iroquois, the clouds started to part. And I could start seeing the sunrise. And that's when I basically started doing the my traverse carefully over the rocks and avoiding alpine vegetation down to the herd path to the shepherd's tooth. And at that point, I was able to turn off my headlamp. So generally, there's two ways to go around the shepherd's tooth, and I've done both many times. And this time, I decided to go the left way because you don't really get cliffed out on that side. And I decided to just go to follow the way that I got before. And I did have a couple issues testing this side previously, but I was like, I'm not going to make the mistake this time. And I went straight down, followed what seemed like to be the correct way based off of just my mental map of what it should look like. And I got down in 25 minutes from the summit of Iroquois to Cold Brook Pass in just 25 minutes, which I was floored by. That's the quickest I've ever gotten down that. Made my way over north a little bit to the Herbert Brook cutoff, pretty much over McIntyre Mountain and up to Mount Marshall. Sending it down now through the trees on the way to Cold Brook Pass to get to the summit of Mount Marshall. Moving pretty quickly through here, hoping to make some really good time.
Jonathan's morning was off to a good start, having completed all 4 mountains of the McIntyre Range, Wright, Algonquin, and Iroquois, along with a bushwhack to Mount Marshall in a lightning-fast 2 hours and 56 minutes, putting him 90 minutes ahead of his projected schedule. Things were looking good. The sun was up, and since I always like to say those miles in the dark don't count, it was now a brand new day as the sun was rising behind Mount Colden, on to Cliff and Redfield.
So I picked up my stuff, ate just a little bit, and knew I was in the clouds, so I'm not going to really bother going to check out the view or anything. Grabbed my stuff and sprinted down Mount Marshall pretty much as fast as I could, because I'm just like, if I'm ahead of time, let me try to get farther ahead as much as I can. So I got down Mount Marshall. I think I clocked myself at just about 25 minutes going from the summit all the way to Lake Colden. And got to Lake Colden. The water was so beautiful. The sun was just poking up behind Colden. Beautiful bluebird morning, and the water was reflective. I just took a moment there because I've been going super fast and just took a moment. I think I ate a Pop-Tart and kind of just took it in and realized, all right, next objective is Redfield and Cliff. Wow. The lighting right now is absolutely incredible. Just ran 25 minutes down from Marshall, standing here at the Lake Colden Dam, looking at Colden. The sunlight is perfect. No breeze. Water is super, super reflective. Feeling good. Gonna eat some Pop-Tarts here real quick before starting the jog over to uphill lean-to. I started making my way carefully and as fast as I could, and I got to the intersection. Now, instead of doing Redfield first, I decided I opted for Cliff first because generally, I'm moving to the east, and so I thought it would just be better to do Cliff first. Generally, Cliff is the longest mile I've ever, it just takes forever, right? Like 45 minutes is how long it takes generally a decent fit hiker to go the 1 mile. But I was cooking, so I was able to go up Cliff in 25 minutes to the summit, avoiding all the mud as best as I possibly could because it's a bog through there, and the last thing I want to do is sink down to my waist in mud. And on the way back down Cliff, right when you get to the very first beautiful cliff spot, the sun was right in my face. I felt the warmth. I took a second to just soak it in and looked out at Redfield and Gray, Skylight, and Marcy, the next goal. I wasn't even 4.5 hours yet into the day, and kept going down. Coming back down from Cliff, and I'm greeted by some warmth, sunlight, beautiful views here of Redfield, Gray, Skylight, and Marcy, the next 4 high peaks. 5th high peak done for the day. It is so nice out, and it's always nice to just take a second, stop, check out the views, take a breath, and just remember why you're doing what you're doing, no matter what it is.